The rain had started without warning. Ethan Cole barely noticed. His mind was too busy replaying the boardroom disaster from an hour ago. A deal he'd spent 8 months building had collapsed in 15 minutes. Investors walked. Lawyers argued. His assistant had suggested he go home and rest, which was her polite way of saying he looked like he might explode. So for the first time in years, Ethan left work early. Traffic crawled. His driver asked if he wanted music. Ethan shook his head. He stared out the window at blurred streetlights and wet sidewalks, thinking of spreadsheets, contracts, and numbers that meant nothing once he stepped through his front door. The mansion waited quietly at the end of a private lane, tall iron gates opening automatically as the car approached. "Thank you, Mark," Ethan said, stepping out. Inside, the house was unusually silent. Normally at this hour, 6-year-old Lily would be racing down the hallway with her stuffed rabbit, shouting about homework or cartoons. The nanny, Grace, would be gently reminding her to use indoor voices. Sometimes Ethan would hear piano practice drifting from the living room. But today, nothing. He loosened his tie, setting his briefcase down by the door. "Lily," he called softly. No answer. He walked deeper into the house. The kitchen lights were off. The living room was empty. A faint sound drifted from upstairs, something between humming and soft sobbing. His chest tightened. He moved quickly up the stairs. Grace had been with them for almost a year. She came highly recommended, kind, quiet, professional. Still, every parent had that quiet fear tucked somewhere in their heart. He reached Lily's bedroom door. It was slightly open. What he saw made him freeze. Grace was sitting on the floor beside Lily's bed. His daughter was curled into a small ball under her blanket, her face flushed and damp with sweat. Grace held a cool cloth against Lily's forehead with one hand, while the other gently brushed Lily's hair back. Grace was crying. Not loudly, just silent tears sliding down her cheeks as she whispered something Ethan couldn't hear. His first instinct was panic. His second was anger. He pushed the door open. "What's going on?" Ethan demanded. Grace startled and turned around, eyes wide. "Mr. Cole, I didn't hear you come in." "Why is my daughter in bed in the middle of the afternoon?" His voice was sharp. "And why are you crying?" Grace stood up quickly. "She has a fever," Grace said. "It spiked suddenly after lunch. I called the pediatrician, gave her the medicine you approved, and I've been monitoring her every 15 minutes. Ethan stepped forward, kneeling beside Lily. Her skin was hot. "Daddy," Lily whispered weakly. His heart broke instantly. He kissed her forehead. Grace continued quietly. She started asking for her mom. Ethan stiffened. Lily's mother had passed away 3 years ago. Grace looked down. She cried for nearly an hour. I tried reading to her, singing, everything. Eventually she fell asleep. Ethan noticed the open storybook on the floor, the half-empty glass of water, the neatly written notes on the bedside table with timestamps and temperature readings. His anger faded, replaced by confusion. Then he noticed something else. Grace's sleeves were wet. Her phone sat on the dresser with a missed call from landlord. Ethan stood slowly. "Why are you crying, Grace?" She hesitated. "It's nothing. Grace." She took a shaky breath. "My little sister is in the hospital," she said softly. "She needs surgery, and I don't have enough money yet. I was on my lunch break when I got the call. I didn't want Lily to see me upset." Ethan was silent. Grace wiped her face quickly. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't let my personal problems affect work." Ethan looked at his daughter sleeping peacefully now, then at the young woman who had been sitting on the floor for hours, comforting her. Something shifted inside him. Ethan sent Grace downstairs to eat while he stayed with Lily. He watched his daughter breathe, counting every rise and fall of her chest. He remembered the nights after his wife died, when Lily would wake screaming, and he'd hold her until dawn while emails piled up unanswered. He hadn't thought much about Grace's role beyond good nanny. Now he realized how wrong that was. After Lily's fever lowered, Ethan stepped into his office and pulled up Grace's employment file. Basic background check, education, references. Nothing about a sick sister. Nothing about overdue rent. He felt a familiar sting of guilt, the kind that came when he realized he'd been too busy being successful to notice people around him struggling. He found Grace in the kitchen, quietly eating soup. "How is she?" Grace asked immediately. "She's sleeping, fever's down." Grace exhaled in relief. Ethan sat across from her. "You didn't tell us about your sister." Grace looked down at her bowl. "I didn't think it was appropriate. You also didn't tell us you're barely making rent." Her spoon froze midair. How did you?" "Your phone." Grace flushed. "I don't want pity, Mr. Cole." "I'm not offering pity," he said. "I'm offering help." Grace shook her head. "I can't accept charity." Ethan leaned forward. "You sat on a hardwood floor for hours holding my sick daughter. You comforted her when she cried for her mother. That's not just a job, that's love." Grace's eyes filled again. "My wife would have thanked you herself if she were here," Ethan continued quietly. Grace covered her mouth. Ethan stood and left the room. 5 minutes later, he returned with an envelope. Grace stared at it. "What's this?" "Enough to cover your sister's surgery and 3 months of rent." Grace jumped to her feet. "I can't take this." "You will," Ethan said calmly. "And before you argue, this isn't a loan, it's gratitude." Grace's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. She burst into tears. Not polite tears. Real ones. "I don't even know what to say." "Say you'll keep taking care of Lily like you did today." Grace nodded fiercely. "I promise." That evening, Ethan canceled his remaining meetings and ordered takeout. He helped Lily with her coloring while Grace made tea. It felt strange. Normal. Later, Lily reached for Grace's hand and whispered, "Thank you for staying with me." Grace smiled softly. Ethan watched from the doorway. He'd spent years building an empire. But it was moments like this that reminded him what truly mattered. Over the following weeks, Lily recovered fully. Grace's sister had successful surgery. Grace came to work with lighter steps and brighter smiles. Ethan noticed changes in himself too. He started coming home earlier. He attended Lily's school events. He learned Grace loved sketching and dreamed of becoming a children's book illustrator someday. One evening, as Lily slept, Ethan and Grace sat on the patio watching the city lights. "You didn't have to do all this," Grace said quietly. "Yes," Ethan replied, "I did." Grace looked at him. "Why?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Because I realized something that day," he said. "Money doesn't protect your child, people do." Grace nodded. "And because you reminded me what compassion looks like." Time passed. Grace didn't just become Lily's nanny. She became family. Not in a dramatic or romantic way. In a real way. The kind that shows up when your child is sick. The kind that sits on cold floors. The kind that cries quietly so a little girl doesn't feel alone. Months later, Lily brought home a drawing from school. It showed 3 stick figures holding hands. Daddy, her, and Grace. Ethan taped it above his desk. Because no business award or luxury car ever meant as much as that picture. The millionaire had come home early expecting silence. Instead, he walked into a moment that changed his life. Not because of something shocking, but because he witnessed something rare. pure, quiet love.